Please welcome USCM past President, Burnsville, Minnesota Mayor Elizabeth Kautz.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sure that everyone had a wonderful evening last night at the Silver Gala at Ranchera. I've been asked to acknowledge the chip winners from the charity event for local nonprofits. Bo Mills with $85,325. Scott Dirge with $21,325. And Maria with $12,300. Yay! Please give them all a round of applause. We are delighted to have with us for the first time Robert Santos, who was sworn in on January 5th as the 26th Director of the United States Census Bureau. His career spans more than 40 years in survey research, statistical design and analysis, and executive-level management. Mr. Santos has held leadership positions in the nation's top survey research organizations, including the National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago, where he served Vice President of Statistics and Methodology and Director of Survey Operations. The Institute for Social Research at the University of Michigan, where he served as Director of Survey Operations, and Temple University's Institute for Survey Research as Senior Study Director and Sampling Statistician. He also served as a 2021 President of the American Statistical Association and is an ASA Fellow, recipient of the ASA's Founder Award in 2006. These are just a few of his outstanding qualifications and achievements. We're pleased to have him join us this morning to speak about the accuracy of the 2020 census data. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Robert Santos.
Good morning, everyone. I always like to start some of these things by saying, Santos reporting for duty. And anyway, I'm really, really thrilled to be here. It's an honor to be able to address you as in my new role as Director of the Census Bureau. You know, I have great admiration for city leaders. Being a mayor in today's society is a unique challenge with complexities that I confess are beyond my limited understanding. I know that in your roles, you deal with issues up front and personal. You meet constituents in their neighborhoods, in their homes, in their schools. You listen to their stories and understand problems from their own perspectives. And your success rests on their assessments of how you address those problems. Your engagement across diverse neighborhoods is really what I admire so much about the jobs you do as leaders. I will tell you that as Director of the U.S. Census Bureau, I too seek connections, but I do so with Census Bureau partners, with stakeholders, and the public more generally. I need to understand the diverse needs of communities, from urban and suburban neighborhoods, rural counties, farms, ranches, even from tribal lands. And yes, there are the needs of federal, state, and local governments, as well as like the business sector, policymakers, scholars, and so on. But understanding the needs of local communities is really, really very important to me. And I'll say a few words about that a little bit later. But first, let me return to my original statement that it's an honor to be with you here today. The Conference's mayors has been a valuable longtime partner to the Census Bureau, and I want to personally thank you for your advocacy. As we all know, the pandemic challenged our society and impacted our most vulnerable communities. When the pandemic's grip on society was its strongest, the Census Bureau still had to deploy a large field force of hundreds of thousands to do the census and knock on doors across the nation. And we did just that. But we didn't do it alone. Without your support, we could not have achieved the measure of success we attained. We recognize and deeply appreciate that, and we learned from it. That's partly why I'm here today. Not just to thank you for helping during an enormously challenging period, but to sustain our mutual, beneficial, and continuous partnership. So in the spirit of strengthening our partnership, let me tell you a little bit about myself and how I lead the Bureau to achieve its new levels of quality. You may know that I was a Census Bureau stakeholder, a policy researcher, and so forth for many years prior to becoming its director. It feels a little bit different being on the other side, but it's all in a good way. I think my roots as a statistician, a policymaker, a Latino, and indeed a fellow stakeholder provides me a unique perspective in leading the Census Bureau. It's a perspective that values the Census Bureau role in producing data that reflects an accurate portrait of America. We're committed to providing you with data quality that you need and that your communities rely on. These data are incredibly valuable assets that can help the public and policymakers assess equity and identify underserved communities. For example, the decennial census, it provides data on demographic counts. But our American Community Survey provides rich wealths of data by race, ethnicity, sex, disability, income, veteran status, housing, and many other characteristics. In fact, it's the data that reveal who we are as a nation. And it's these data that policymakers use to advance equity and propose effective evidence-based solutions. Now, the Census Bureau continually strives for excellence, and that can be challenging in these times. But even in the face of challenges, I believe we can find new ways to collect data that are more accurate, timely, and have utility, as in fitness for use. In fact, I believe that we promote excellence by embracing equity, diversity, and inclusion in our workforce, in our policies and practices, as well as in how we engage our stakeholders. Let me tell you 3 ways that we do that. First, we commit to data equity. Our Equity Data Working Group assembles various data sets to help explore disparities and inequities in our society. For instance, we worked with the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. We have acronyms, we call it NTIA, to create a visual tool called the Digital Equity Act Population Viewer. This particular tool reveals broadband availability and usage alongside with data on demographics in every state in our union. It allows NTIA to fund those communities with the highest need for broadband assistance under the bipartisan infrastructure law. And you can track progress over time with these data. We also worked with the Economic Development Agency Administration, or EDA, to create a tool called Community Resilience Estimates Equity Supplement. This visual tool provides EDA with data at the tract level, down like neighborhoods basically, on socio-demographic items and community resilience risk factors. But more importantly, these data tools are available to you. They are in the public domain. So they're available to cities and the public. And we should make use of these valuable assets. So the second way we do things is we infuse diversity and inclusion in our workplace. I've found over the years, and I bring to the Census Bureau the knowledge that diverse voices are potent catalysts to increase data quality and data relevance. It promotes innovation, critical thinking, and excellence. I've spoken and written about this a bit in my director's log, as well as last year during my presidency of the American Statistical Association. And the third thing that we do is we engage the full diversity of our stakeholders, which includes you. Stakeholder feedback is absolutely critical to understanding data user needs. This includes how we protect personal information while simultaneously producing relevant, high-quality data about your cities and your residents. We plan to strengthen existing partnerships and identify new partners. We believe this builds public trust, which in turn can engender participation in data collection. And it will also serve to inform partners of the value of census data to their communities. Next, I'll turn to the topic of data quality, which I know is really important to you. We'll continue to be transparent about the quality and reliability of the statistics that we publish at the Census Bureau and the data that we release. As you know, no statistical product is ever perfect. I hope you knew that, by the way. All are subject to various degrees of uncertainty and error. We apply extensive quality checks at the Census Bureau and reviews to identify and reduce those errors so that our data are indeed fit for intended uses, such as the apportionment and legislative redistricting uses of the 2020 census. But we go even further by conducting assessment studies that explore data quality. For instance, to examine the quality of the 2020 decennial census data, we have already released reports on operational quality metrics. We've released a data demographic analysis. We've released a post-enumeration survey. And we've hosted 3 independent studies by groups of outside experts. These releases allow data users and policymakers alike to better leverage the insights of 2020 census data. And such transparency adds value to the published data because you know its strengths and its limitations. It also illustrates the scientific integrity of the Census Bureau. No one else, especially in the commercial sector, goes to these lengths to help people understand the value and the quirks of the data. Moreover, these assessments are vital for planning the 2030 census as well as for improving our ongoing data collections, such as our flagship American Community Survey. You know, I've spent many years analyzing data for policy research, and I know how important data quality is. And I can say that I've always felt and continue to feel confident using Census Bureau data to explore community needs, identify inequities, and develop policy recommendations. Now let's look to the future. The Census Bureau is undertaking a transformation and modernization initiative that focuses on new ways to collect data that are even more accurate, timely, and meet the needs of the public. We seek to improve how we gather data through an equity paradigm. Our data provide an accurate reflection of the nation, a nation that is increasingly becoming richly diverse and evolving with emerging new technologies that all too often leave some folks behind. And because of that, we must focus on ways to better represent underserved communities. For instance, cultural relevance is really important for data accuracy. If you don't understand the question, you can't answer it accurately. That's why we research ways to improve respondents' understanding of questions and why we accommodate multiple languages. And as I mentioned, we're conducting ongoing engagement with partners and stakeholders who identify needs that would be missed if it were not for their feedback. And that's also why I'm with you here today, to make sure that you understand that the Census Bureau seeks to strengthen and sustain our partnership. We want to hear your needs. We've talked about how your help in the 2020 census that we are so appreciative of. And you know, decennial censuses are clearly a big part of what the Census Bureau does. It's in our name. But we also conduct over 130 annual surveys, and we conduct a couple of other censuses that I'll mention in a second. But they all have one element in common. They rely on the American public to participate, to respond when asked. Speaking of which, I invite you to participate in our ongoing 2022 Census of Governments. And I also encourage you to promote the 2022 Economic Census among your business communities and your chambers of commerce. We also, by the way, want to hear from you about group quarters population counts as they relate to the 2020 census. We are inviting eligible tribal, state, and local governments, including cities, to participate in our 2020 post-census group quarters review operation. This new program responds to public concern about counting group quarters populations, college dorms, things of that sort. It allows a review of the 2020 census group quarters population counts for those facilities that you believe were undercounted. We also seek your input for the demographic and housing characteristics file called the DHC. Those are forthcoming. And the detailed demographic housing and characteristics file called the detailed DHC, which really disaggregate race and ethnicity and things of that sort. The first one, the DHC, is going to be released in May of 2023, and in response to user feedback, the detailed DHC will be released as 3 sequenced files so that we can get them out to the public sooner. In closing, I thank you again for your engagement and for the chance to speak to you today. Your partnership is really important in helping us advance excellence in data quality and especially in meeting your needs. I look forward to continuing our dialogue, and I thank you very much.
Good morning again. The Civic I/O Plenary is a celebration of the innovation and creativity of our annual Civic I/O Mayor Summit at South by Southwest. The Conference of Mayors, in partnership with Austin Mayor Steve Adler and South by Southwest, has brought mayors to the festival ever since 2016. With the exception of 2020, which is one of the first major events canceled by the coronavirus pandemic. A key part of all of this work is our next speaker, who has been instrumental in partnering with the conference and Mayor Adler on all of this. Please welcome the Chief Programming Officer for South by Southwest, Hugh Forrest. I now want to invite Hugh to the stage to share a little about Civic I/O and South by Southwest.
Good morning. My name is Hugh Forrest, and I am the Chief Programming Officer at South by Southwest. It is a huge honor to be here this morning and give you a brief overview of South by Southwest, as well as what to expect in 2023 and how we've worked with the mayors. So South by Southwest was launched in 1987 in this small sleepy college town called Austin, Texas. In those early days, South by Southwest was entirely focused on music. During the day, we had a traditional conference, much like you've had here the last few days, with panels, presentations, keynotes. At night, we had the big South by Southwest Music Festival, so more of a festival approach. This creative mix of conference and festival has served us very well at South by Southwest. I think this creative mix of business and play has also served Austin very well over the last 3 decades as we have moved from a sleepy college town to one of the fastest growing cities in the US. This is the first ever brochure from South by Southwest. I may or may not have constructed that on PageMaker. South by Southwest has changed a ton since 1987, but creativity still powers everything that we do. Today we cover so much more than just music. We cover government and politics, health tech, med tech, biotech, streaming, startups, quantum computing, food, transportation, psychedelics, the ever-changing media industry, space exploration, and commercial space travel, and so much more. Creativity is the bottom line that ties all these industries and all these verticals together. Again, as much as South by Southwest has changed over the last 3 decades, our mission statement has not, and that is that South by Southwest helps creative people to achieve their goals. One of our most creative speakers at the March 2022 event was Lizzo, who was our keynote, one of our 9 keynotes this year. One other thing that hasn't changed over the last 35 years is the focus on tomorrow. Discovering the next big thing has always been very important at South by Southwest. That process started in 1987 with people coming to Austin to discover up-and-coming bands. Then in the 1990s, when we added film, people came to Austin to find the next big films, the next big filmmaker talent. So much of that discovery now focuses on technology. Founders with new ideas, new innovations are today's rock stars at South by Southwest. Being able to connect with those founders and their new ideas is what makes South by Southwest so special. This is a picture of the world's first 3D printed house, manufactured by an Austin-based startup called Icon. This picture was from South by Southwest 2018. Icon is still doing wonderful things, and they had a big presence at the 2022 event. Why South by Southwest is such a great spot for mayors. Today's top mayors are passionate about creativity and innovation. Today's top mayors are embracing tomorrow's best ideas. All of these goals are part of the South by Southwest experience, and all of these goals are part of the Civic I/O experience, which is the part of South by Southwest specifically focused on the mayors. Kudos to Mayor Adler for recognizing the synergy between South by Southwest and what the mayors are doing back in 2016. Kudos for the U.S. Conference of Mayors for building on this synergy significantly over the last few years. This is, of course, a picture of Mayor Adler and Mayor Suarez, as well as Jacob Ward of NBC News, talking at South by Southwest 2022 about the next big cities for innovation, whether they are Austin or Miami or Reno, Nevada, or somewhere else. This was a great discussion. So many opportunities for growth, for learning connections at South by Southwest 2023. We'll cover smart cities, we'll cover new energy solutions, we'll cover sustainable innovation, we'll also cover affordable housing, as well. We'll certainly cover all this world of NFTs, crypto, and Web3. This is a great opportunity to learn and be inspired by some of the world's most creative minds. All this, plus great music from the South by Southwest Music Festival, great films from the South by Southwest Film Festival, and great food, because great food is what we do in Austin. This is a picture of a woman named Amy Webb, who has been a fixture at South by Southwest for the last decade. She always gives her report on the top tech trends for the coming year. It's certainly one of the not-to-be-missed sessions at South by Southwest. Important dates and contact information for the 2023 event. Next year's event is Friday, March 10th through Saturday, March 18th. The specific portion of the event that focuses on mayors is March 10th through Sunday, March 12th. The speaking proposal process begins in about 3 weeks. That runs June 28th through July 24th. That happens through an interface called the South by Southwest Panel Picker, which is panelpicker.sxsw.com/about. You can always get the most current South by Southwest information at sxsw.com. You can always get the most current Civic.io info at civic.io.com. I'm always happy to answer any South by Southwest questions, big or small, hugh@sxsw.com. Again, next year's dates are March 10th through 19th. We hope to see you in Austin in March, and to give you a little more information about the Civic.io portion, we've got this great video that will give you a lot more details. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to speak this morning.
It's just real nice to have everybody back. It's really fitting that South by be the bookends for our pandemic. It was the first real concession that we made to the virus, and to have it coming back out now is great.
When you come to a city and people invite you to their home, it means their family. This is not the last South by Southwest for our good friend Mayor Adler, but it's the last one we'll have with him as mayor. I want to thank him for welcoming us and creating a Civic.io.
South by Southwest is a world's fair of new ideas.
Well, I think that it creates a sense of what's possible.
Austin is a city that helps make good ideas become real.
We are in Austin, Texas at South by Southwest, spending a lot of time in particular with America's mayors as we learn about how we can become better innovators for our cities.
We are trying to think differently about what is the infrastructure that a city provides for healthy, whole communities, and that's a long game.
It's been wonderful to have all the mayors at South by Southwest. We've come together with a lot of the tech and civic action community.
The Civic.io program that was started by the United States Conference of Mayors in conjunction with South by has been an incredible way to integrate municipal leaders into the conference.
Civic.io is very important because it brings government, technology, forward-thinking entrepreneurs together.
It's the opportunity for us to expand and partner with these mayors.
By participating in Civic.io, a mayor has the chance to make sure your unique community needs are at the forefront as people develop the products, technologies, and solutions for the future.
This is really one of my favorite groups of people to be with.
Today I met with mayors from around the country to talk about how we rebuild trust, connection, and community, especially as we come through the COVID-19 pandemic and prepare for everything that comes next.
The next sets of city services, the next infrastructure, those are being built today.
We really welcome and like mayors coming here. It's a chance to learn. It's a chance to meet the innovators and the creators.
I hope this is the first time you've ever been into a 3D printed home.
It's a great way to be with one another, to explore municipal challenges and the innovations that can lead to future solutions.
Policy making, it has to be grounded in the lived experience of people. We have to go to our local neighborhood activists who are trusted on the ground and make them the conduit of information to really drive change at the local level.
We've been exposed to a variety of different companies that have services that we're going to be able to use at home. But the big takeaway is that we're stronger when we're collaborating with each other.
Mayors need to be at South by Southwest to understand what technology is coming and how we can prepare our cities to make sure that technology benefits the most of our residents.
To be successful, it seems like you have to be one step ahead.
You can't always issue an RFP to solve every problem in local government. And so rather than us paying for new consultants on any number of things, we have people who are coming to us, giving us that opportunity to learn and to grow our cities and communities.
We've been reborn again, and we know that we're going to make it.
Everyone, I'm going to request that you all come forward for this next portion because you're going to be involved in it. So if you would, please, pick up all of your belongings and come forward. It's now my pleasure to get underway with our mayor's matchup, Civic Tech Pitch. Just as we did in 2019, we partnered with Kapor Capital, a venture fund based in Oakland, California, which invests in startups that have the ability to transform entire industries and to address urgent social needs as they do so. Many of their startups are doing good work in civic tech solving challenges cities face. Before I go over the rules, I'd like to introduce our 4 mayoral judges. Rochester Hills Mayor Brian Barnett. Youngstown Mayor Jamal Tito Brown. Salt Lake City Mayor Aaron Mendenhall. And Santa Fe Mayor Alan Weber. Yay. Please welcome to the stage all of these wonderful mayors who are helping us this morning. So everyone, here are the rules for today's pitches. Each of our 5 finalists will have 5 minutes to pitch their product. You can see the countdown clock up on the stage, and at the end of 5 minutes, you will hear a buzzer that will let you know the time has expired. Okay, there is supposed to be there you go. After each pitch, our panel of mayoral judges will be able to ask questions for 3 minutes. Everyone in this audience will be able to participate as well. If you open up the Civic.io plenary session inside the USCM mobile app, you can also vote along in the tech pitch. With the rules out of the way, let's meet our first contestant, Bitwise.
And everyone can hear me, okay. I hope you're caffeinated. This is gonna go fast. Good morning, judges. Thanks for having me. I know that folks have spent the last 4 days figuring out how to fix their cities and how to save the world. And so a couple of us are gonna come up and pitch some products so that you can understand how you're doing it all wrong. I kid. But what do I know about fixing a city? My name is Irma Olguin Jr. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of a company called Bitwise Industries. We're headquartered in Fresno, California. There's a lot of, thank you, there's a lot of information to cover here, so if you want the long form version of this, you'll have to listen to my TED Talk called How to Turn Around a City. So that will come later, go ahead and Google that one, but in these next 4 minutes or so, I'm gonna try to help folks understand what has been happening in Fresno, California for the last decade. So, I'm from Fresno, it's my hometown. I don't know how much you know about Fresno, but it is a challenged place. 4 of the 10 poorest zip codes in the state are in my county. 1 in 4 people live in poverty. A place that's built by agriculture, where you can pretty well predict what your life is gonna be like based on whether your family owns land or works on land. And we wanted to fix that. My co-founder and I wanted to bring high growth, high wage jobs to the area, and we believed that the technology industry was the way to that. And so what do you do if you want to catalyze the technology industry in a place like Fresno, California? We believed there were 3 things you needed to focus on. The first thing, of course, is technology education. How do you skill the son or daughter of a migrant farm worker into the technology industry? Not how do you export more of your young people to MIT or to Stanford, wonderful schools, but how do you do technology education in a way that meets folks where they are? So that was the first bucket of thing that we knew we needed to focus on. Second thing we knew we needed to focus on were the jobs themselves. If you're from an underestimated background, you've got a little bit of skill, what do you do next? Where do you go to work? What is the body of work that leads you into that next job? And so we knew we needed to bring the jobs into our hometown. So that was the second bucket of thing. And then the third bucket of thing, of course, is community. If you're from an underestimated city, an underestimated background, how do you know that you're gonna experience a sense of belonging in an industry where you believe potentially that you don't belong? We've been able to employ these 3 pieces, creating an ecosystem in Fresno, California. Like I said before, we've been doing this for 9 years. We have a body of work, a lot of evidence, over 8,000 students trained in our hometown. Of those, the folks who elect to go into our career path, we have a 100% placement rate in the technology industry, which means that there are thousands of new jobs created in our hometown in the technology industry and technology adjacent industry. But I think what mayors are going to be most interested in is that the technology industry has a high multiplier rate, which means that for every new technology job you create in a place like Fresno, 4.3 additional jobs and local goods and services jobs are also created at the same time. A lot of bang for your buck. So every dollar that you invest into an apprenticeship in the tech industry results in 27 more dollars for your city. That's the model that we've been employing in Fresno, California, like I said before, to great success. But what does that new technology workforce actually look like? Well, in Fresno, California, just as one example, it means it's 250,000 square feet of commercial technology tenant in the heart of our downtown, all occupying what used to be blighted buildings. It is a technology workforce, in aggregate, came to us earning less than $20,000 a year from retail, factory, warehouse, and field work, exiting our programs earning on average between $60,000 and $80,000 a year, which is transformative money for folks who are coming from a story of poverty. And then the last thing I'll say in terms of an accountability metric for us is that that new technology workforce looks like Fresno County, which means that it's greater than 50% Latinx, it's greater than 50% female or gender nonconforming, 20% first generation, 42% LGBTQ. We have over 1,000 former veterans and folks from the formerly incarcerated or the reentry populations also holding technology jobs in our hometown. And that's just in the last 9 years. We started to grow in 2019 to Bakersfield, to Toledo, Ohio, to El Paso, Texas, to Cheyenne, Wyoming, Greeley, Colorado, and all across the country. We are a Cape or Capital portfolio company, which means that we are well capitalized and positioned to grow further across the country. It's working in underestimated cities in California. It can work in the rest of the United States. Thanks for your time.
Great job. Well done. Maybe explain a little bit about how you work with a city in particular, and how do you make money? How does the city pay? Is there a cost component that Fresno had to contribute in order to see some of the success?
Yeah, we work closely with municipalities, but not typically on the revenue model side. So we work closely with municipalities because what we do when we plant ourselves in a new city is that we buy blighted buildings in their downtown, rehab them, lease them back out to ourselves and others in the tech industry, and that takes a lot of work to go back and forth with the city on what we can and can't do on a certain corner of downtown. That's important to us because place is important to us. When you go into a place like Fresno, Bakersfield, Toledo, Ohio, where do you physically go to find the technology industry? What building do you walk into? We weren't building that in Fresno, so we wanted to build castles for the underdogs where you knew there was a flag in the ground planted that said, if you want to be good at this, if you want to be good in the technology industry, this is where you come. And so we work closely with cities to identify what those spaces need to be in cities that we don't understand as fully as we understand our hometown. And then the other way that we work with cities and, of course, counties and workforce investment boards is government workforce dollars are one part of the revenue stream for us. To expand on that, though, it's a diversified revenue stream. We work with philanthropy, government, corporate entities, real estate dollars, of course, and then we're a venture-backed growth stage company as well.
You said Ohio, right? You didn't say Michigan?
Correct, yes.
Okay, I was just curious. I did say you said Toledo, Ohio.
Toledo, Ohio.
You had me at Toledo, Ohio, just to let you know.
Okay.
Talk a little bit more about the family dynamics of those that I heard you say, the poverty, but talk a little bit, how do you guys really help guide that for not just a job, but for a career for them?
One of the most important things about what we do at Bitwise is that we understand the lived experience of having come from a story of poverty or the son or daughter of an immigrant farm laborer. So we understand what the true life challenges are. We know that it's not whether or not you're good at math in the 5th grade that's going to stop you from getting into the technology industry. It's going to be that you don't have a reliable car to get to class. It's going to be that you don't have cash in your pocket to pay for education. It's going to be that your parents don't have childcare. It's going to be that you have elder care situations where you're taking care of a grandparent. And so because we know that, we actually focus on the things that stop people from taking advantage of an opportunity rather than did we invent a fancy new way to teach Python. That's not really what learning and earning in the technology industry is really about. It's about making space in your life. So that's part one. That's for the student themselves. Part two, though, is whether or not you can get the family to buy into this fancy new thing that your kid might be doing. In the Latino community, for example, if a young man is spending a lot of time on a laptop, the assumption is automatically going to be that he's playing games. How do you convince the family that he's not in fact playing games, but is investing in his future, and it's something that the family should be interested in him doing? And so we work a lot with first generation and second generation family members to help them understand what the technology industry actually looks like.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for your time.
It's good to see that you have all moved forward, because you see, your energy helps the energy on stage. Thank you. And I'd like to remind all of you, please use the mobile app and vote, because you will help our judges as well. So, now our second contestant, Kaya Bakir.
Thank you very much. Judges, thank you so much for the opportunity to share my work and what we're really passionate about at Kaya Bakir. As you all know, we're in a maternal health crisis in the US today. We've had a few speakers talk about that. To provide a little bit of perspective, over the last 10, 15 years, we've seen outcomes for mom and babies actually trend in the worst direction. Unfortunately, these poor outcomes disproportionately impact Black and brown families and low-income families in cities like Philadelphia. To give you perspective in terms of what it means, if we're able to actually close the disparities gaps that actually exist in those communities, in cities like Philadelphia, where Kaya Bakir is based, it means that 3,000 babies do not start their lives off in the NICU due to preterm deliveries. It also means that 300 more Black and brown babies live to see their first birthday. So that is the problem that we're trying to actually tackle at Kaya Bakir. So my name is Olan Shuramek, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Kaya Bakir. I am a physician by training, and I spent my time in emergency departments in cities across the US. I'm also a dad of 2 boys, a 2.5-year-old and a 6-month-old, and lived experiences and seen firsthand the difficulties navigating the healthcare system is what made me start Kaya Bakir. So I'm a physician, but unfortunately, a lot of the drivers of poor outcomes are actually not clinical. We've had a lot of people talk about some really important issues. Social determinants of health is one of the key drivers. The lack of housing, transportation, food, childcare is actually one of the key drivers preventing women and families from getting the care they need for really good outcomes. We also know that behavioral health is a really key factor. So pre-pandemic, 20% of women going into a maternity episode actually had anxiety and depression. That number has actually increased. And lastly, the thing I will also call out is there's a lack of diversity in the perinatal workforce, where the workforce actually don't look like the patients that they serve. And this implicit bias that actually exists leads to a lot of Black and brown women not feeling heard, not feeling actually reacted to, and unfortunately having poor outcomes. So what do we do at Kaya Bakir? So we're a home-based tech-enabled solution that actually bring technology and services into the home. We work with low-income families, so less than 60,000, and we get paid for our services by partnering with Medicaid and commercial plans, so we're a provider group. And what we actually do bring into the home is a role that we call a maternity navigator. So we hire women from the communities. A lot of them are certified medical assistants, and we train them up to provide services into the home, but they do not work in isolation. So we enable them with technology, and we wrap around them a multidisciplinary team to help drive some of the clinical gaps, social determinants of health gaps, and behavioral health gaps. So we started off in Philly, and we're now looking to expand beyond Philly and looking at other cities across the US. And some of our learnings in Philadelphia is actually what we're hearing from other cities as well, where it's incredibly fragmented to actually access all the benefits patients might be qualified for. Patients don't have a lot of support in the postpartum phase, and behavioral health support in the maternity episode is actually lacking in terms of access to it. And so what we've done in the city of Philadelphia is we've actually partnered with the city and worked with providers at some of the Philly-run health centers. So we get referrals from actually those health centers that provide prenatal care to up to 2,000 women every year. And we actually provide them that extra layer of support. We also think about what we're doing in terms of workforce development. So we've hired maternity navigators from the communities that we serve. We've actually given them training and certifications, and we've provided them a full-time job where they can actually make an impact to the communities that they serve. We still have a lot of work to do in Philly, but some of the results that we've seen so far is patients that actually engage in our program are 3 times as likely to follow the OB plan of care, and they're 40% less likely to utilize the emergency department during their time with us. So what do we need from the cities, and how do we partner? The first step when we go in is to try to make sure that we learn what are the needs of those cities. Healthcare is really local, and even though we're tech-enabled and we talk about how technology drives it, the first hire we make is a community outreach associate and a social worker in that city, and start really understanding what are the needs of the city. So if there's City Department of Health task force that are thinking about how to impact maternity, we want to talk to them. We want to talk to hospitals and health system leaderships in terms of how we partner. And then we want to talk to employer groups and talk about what benefits they actually provide during the maternity episode.
Great presentation. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Tell me about how you connect with the mothers themselves. Are they referred by their provider? And if so, how do you connect with the parents who may not have access to the healthcare and may only be coming in very late in the pregnancy?
Great question. So we clinically integrate with the large OB providers in the city. And so the first step we do is actually to talk a lot to the OB providers and plug into their electronic medical records and clinically integrate. But we go beyond that, right? We make sure we establish actually a footprint in the community. So we actually will rent space. In Philadelphia, we're at a ShopRite right next to in West Philadelphia. And so we make sure we have a presence. So both footprint in terms of space, our vans are in the community, we're hiring from the communities. So they know, like sisters talk to sisters, friends talk to friends. And a lot of our referrals is word of mouth. And we actually identify a lot of patients before they plug into the traditional healthcare system.
I think it's a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
My partner asked the first question, which is how do you get your customers, your clients, your patients? How do you scale this? What are the obstacles that you already can foresee, and then how do you overcome them to grow this program?
That's great. That's a great question. So our goal is to be in multiple cities across the U.S. And what we think about in terms of scale is truly thinking about how we utilize technology to scale it. But healthcare is still very local, right? You have to hire a workforce that's local. You have to hire a workforce that understands the community. What we do know is that in a lot of the communities that we serve, the certified medical assistant is the entry-level role in healthcare. And in a lot of communities that we serve, there are lots of certified medical assistants that we could actually employ and skill up to provide this service. We provide a much better income and employment source for those patients, and actually invest in our maternity navigators so that it's an attractive place for them to work.
Have you thought about hiring any of the moms to be employees as well?
We've had a couple of moms actually apply, and we've actually hired our first mom. And so it's a community, right? And that is actually really key for us.
Along the ideas of Mayor Weber in terms of scaling, you obviously have a great background. You said you're a physician, correct?
Yes.
Would that be required in every specific location where you would grow? You'd need to find a physician on the ground to sort of build around?
Yeah, so in a lot of the locations, I'm a physician. I'm an emergency medicine physician. My co-founder is an OBGYN. So I don't see patients on the platform, and I do more of the work with the business. But in a lot of the places that we go, we want to build partnerships with the local physicians. A lot of them play a significant role in those communities, and so that is our focus, to partner with them to provide our service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our third pitch this morning is safer management.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fred Burns. I'm the founder and CEO of Safer Management. And I want to talk to you about something that I think everyone in this room should really care about. Really quick, before I get into it, raise your hand if you have children and if you care about education in your city. Perfect. Well, this is where Safer Management comes in at. I'm a father, a proud father of twin boys, Mason and Mackenzie. The reason that they're in my slides, not to win you over, but it's also they're the reason that I started my company. I dropped my boys off at summer camp, took 45 minutes for them to sign in, and for me to sign in, and it was a continuous process, and I said there has to be a better way. So I created a solution that solved the problem that was home and near and dear to me, myself. That night, I stayed up, pulled an all-the-nighter, brought this back to the summer camp and showed the counselors, and they realized, okay, we have something here, and it was something that they can use. I did a little more research because me being an entrepreneur, my background is software engineering. I realized just because I can do it doesn't mean I have to do it. And so I wanted to do more research to see if there's really a problem. And that's when I got into our education systems and realized that it's antiquated. These sheets of paper, this is an actual live sheet of paper that I received. And one of the biggest issues that we face is the inefficiencies in the attendance tracking process. And so this is some little comedy. This is Abbott Elementary, but it talks about it. You know, they use political satire in order to talk about some of the real issues that goes along. And so this is, let's see if this plays here.
All right, attendance time. So raise your hand if you're not here.
And this is so.
All right, so Nicole's not here.
And this is real life. And so let's talk about dollars and cents, because this is what a lot of it gets to you all. ADA, average daily attendance count. School districts receive their funding based off their average daily attendance count, and the inefficiencies in the attendance tracking process causes you all to lose dollars that affects the funding and the teacher pay inside of school districts, which is very important to cities. How do they relate to cities? Well, one of the number one drivers in regards to individuals moving to different cities is based on the educational systems. So if the schools are not properly funded and the education is not up to par, the individual is not moving to your cities, and that causes a reduction into the tax dollars which you all use to build better infrastructures and different resources within your cities. And so we automate the attendance tracking process. We have technology that we built for the masses and not for the classes. I'm originally from the state of Mississippi, and so we have to learn how to do, we learn how to do a lot with less. And so our software was originally built to work not being online or with individuals who may not have access to certain machines. We wanted to leverage the webcams that was already utilized because of teachers got laptops because of COVID. And so that's what we built our product around, and now we have scaled that and add more efficiencies to it so larger cities could use it as well. This is printable ID badges. Teachers are able to print our ID badges on sheets of paper, so we don't have to worry about using plastic. They don't have a printer for ID badges or digital ID badges, and we have a whole ecosystem of technology in which we use bus route tracking, in which we use as well too to let parents know when their child got on and off the bus. So the school district are not buying these systems. Believe it or not, if you talk to teachers in your area, they're buying technology, they're buying 10 different applications and going 10 different places in order to do something. So we built the ecosystem to take some of the stress off teachers, because as you know, this is something that they're dealing with a lot in regards to all the different challenges in the classroom. We got a parent and student apps as well too to help parents stay engaged, and also to reward students as well too for their behavior, their attendance, and making sure parents have easier ways to upload permission slips right on their app as well too. This is Safer Management. If you have any questions or you'd like to go more in detail about how our solution can better impact your city, please scan this QR code and set up a meeting directly, and I look forward to speaking with all of you all.
Excellent presentation. Two things for you before I even ask my question. I got the same blue suit. It looks a lot better on you than it does me. I'm going to talk to my tailor when I get back home. And I'm a father of twins as well. So
wow.
We stand in the same space.
Yes.
Talk to me a little more about the whole, I heard the teacher and then some about the parents. Talk to me about the hard to count kids, the ones who are not necessarily going to school, and how do you track that, or they're on the roll, and what's the process to getting them back into the system or catching them, making sure that they're accounted for?
Great question. So we built an accountability model. each city and mostly on the state level, you have chronic absenteeism, so they have different policies and thresholds in which students are not able to miss school a certain amount of days. And so we got alerts and notification system that not only goes to the parents, but also goes into the individuals that are in charge of keeping up with that as well too. So then they can go out in regards to the truancy officers and making sure that we're trying to catch those individual students. So being proactive as well and not waiting until they have reached that limit, but trying to catch them before that threshold.
Our school district has over 50 languages spoken in it. Tell me about the access for parents who don't use English as their first language.
Great question as well too. Well, in the age of technology, we have translation, so whatever language you use, we have something that automates. Localization is the technical term that we use for it. We have it built in within our website and also our mobile app as well too.
I love the problem you're addressing. I think as a business, the question is, how do you get adoption? What's your outreach, marketing, and pitch to get more and more districts and parents and kids to use your solution to their problem?
Great. So our number one person that we want to serve is the district and the teachers using it. And then in full transparency, when you want to really get in, you talk dollars and cents. You talk about how this is affecting your budget and how you're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars or possibly millions depending on the amount that the state give you per student. In New York, maybe it's $20,000 per year students get. And in Texas, the other state, maybe it's $9,000 to $12,000. So when you get in there and talking about dollars and cents in regards to how this saves you funding, how you're able to generate revenue as well too, then you have people's ears.
Schools have a lot of, not normally, but have had more funding recently because of some of the things happening federally. Do you have some good case studies across the country that you could share that where this has actually been implemented and saved money by or increased funding?
Yes, so we have one school district, the Jackson Public School District. So we have noticed the attendance rate has gotten up to 93% using our system, and where we have another system coming out, I'm looking at the time, making sure teacher PBIS, so rewarding teachers for using our system as well too for that adoption. That case study will be done in about 12 to 14 months, and we'll be able to show how that our system is able to increase higher usage rates as well too.
Tell us what your name is.
Fred Burns.
Thank you, Fred Burns.
Appreciate
Rapid fire questions. You've done very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you.
Weren't those great pitches? So everyone, you have about 4 minutes to cast your vote, which you can cast inside the USCM mobile app for iPhones, iPads, and Androids. And I invite you to do that now if you have not done so already. They left. But I want you to give them an applause because they had hard work. And in doing that too, you all need to vote. And as we are tallying the votes, we want to share an update from our winning pitch from 2019 in Honolulu. Let's welcome Promise to the stage.
Good morning. Good morning, good morning. My name is Phaedra Ellis-Lampkins, and I'm the co-founder of a company called Promise, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be here. A little context about Promise, we're a software company. We started our first product in the criminal justice system. And what we realized, which you all probably see, is a lot of people were ending up in the criminal justice system because of fees and fines and poverty. And so we wanted to understand why and how that was happening. So we went to the city we lived in and said, what happens when you can't pay a parking ticket? And at the time they said, you need to come into the office, you need to provide a copy of your taxes, and then if you do it, we have to manage it manually. And we said, we come from software where people can buy a Peloton interest-free and you can do it online. Why do we make it as difficult as possible for cities to get money and for poor people to pay you? It's the opposite of what you do in the private sector. You want money in, so you make it easy for people to pay. And that's what Promise does. We help governments bring money in and get money out as quickly as possible to the people who need it the most. We think about lifting people up and bringing money in. Here's a couple of our clients. We're launching actually next month with Baltimore, Milwaukee, Buffalo, and others. We've been growing pretty rapidly. And what's the problem? It's basically that a lot of folks have payment systems in governments that are really made to set it and assume it works. So for example, you assume that everyone has the same amount of money per month on the same date. And what we know is that's not true anymore. The way that people get paid has changed. What they use to make payments, Venmo, Cash App, those things are really critical for folks. So we've worked to make sure that people can get interest-free installment plans to pay governments, but also that we can get money out as quickly as possible. What does that look like? Zero interest installment plans. We have a relief portal that makes it easier for people to access aid. We reach out to people via text messaging instead of hoping they'll find us on a website. And then we provide reporting and analytics so that we can make better decisions. I think it's important that you play a clip. Imagine that you used to get aid. You'd have to come in an office, provide a copy of your taxes. But I'm going to play audio now of what it looks like for someone to get aid through us.
Okay, I'm just taking a second. Okay, do you live in Jefferson County, Ms. Clarkson?
Yes.
Have you had financial hardship due to COVID-19?
Yes.
And was it job loss, reduced hours or wages, or additional expenses?
Additional expenses and loss of wages.
Okay. I'm so sorry to hear that. And do you agree that we can text you information about this program?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That wiped out your water bill.
Oh, praise the Lord. Thank you.
Right? That's always like, oh, this is fun. So it may take about 24 hours, but you had $232 due, and that you got $232.53 of COVID relief. So just don't worry about your COVID bill don't worry about your water bill this month.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Of course. I'm so happy we get to do this. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you, you too. Thank you. God bless you.
You and God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
We think that's what it should be like to interact with government. But it's important that we have data too. We want a good experience, but we also want good information. We have a 90% repayment rate. That's different than the current 20% average rate of repayments on payment plans in government. What we've learned is 90% of people get back on track, and if you let them have 2 extra weeks, so for that one time a month doesn't work, 85% of people who we allow to modify and change their terms end up paying. And of the eligible people, 21% of people who could enroll in our programs. In places like Richmond, Virginia, we work with them. They had $1 million in relief. They were able to give out in 7 months. They came to us. We got 4.5 out in 5 weeks. Louisville Water, we work with them to get 11.5 million out, 5 million in payment plans, 6.5 million in rapid relief. 12,000 people were able to keep their water on. And again, they went from a 20% repayment rate before we got there to a 93% repayment rate. So Promise is really about getting information out as quickly as possible to make government as easy to access so that government has sustainable revenue and the people who rely on the services are treated with the same level of respect of someone who buys a Peloton. Thank you.
And now that voting is closed and we tally votes, I would like to invite Good Call, winner of this year's Civic I/O Mayor's Summit at South by Southwest this past March, to share their winning pitch.
I'm Jelani Anglin, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Good Call. And this is Khalif. Khalif was arrested for allegedly stealing a backpack. He spent 3 years in Rikers Island, most of that time in solitary confinement, causing irreversible mental trauma. Khalif's Khalif was released. He was exonerated. However, that mental trauma caused Khalif to take his life. His family won a wrongful death lawsuit against the city, but that won't bring Khalif back. This problem happens across the country. Every year, there are 10 million individuals that are arrested, 500,000 that are sitting in jail right now without even being convicted of a crime, and 14 billion that's paid by taxpayers to incarcerate these individuals. But this isn't about dollars and cents. This is about people. The impact of unnecessary jail time is devastating. It can cause loss of job, compromising of your immigration status, and like Khalif, that irreversible mental trauma. We had conversations with public defenders and folks that were system impacted. And the one thing that was unique that existed was that they both wanted to contact each other. Lawyers want to speak to their clients sooner in the process. Folks that were impacted wanted to have support. So we knew that an opportunity existed. This isn't new. California Policy Lab did a study that said that folks that have access to immediate legal support are able to be released on their own recognizance rather than sent to pretrial detention, which increases the likelihood of their charges being dropped by over 50%. So we knew that this is something that we can actually fix with technology. And Good Call was born. With a single phone call, we connect folks to immediate access to legal support 24 hours a day, where they're able to connect with a free lawyer and a loved one. Here's the technology behind it. We have an easy centralized number in New York, 1-833-GOOD-CALL, that anybody can call and be connected with an attorney. We also have a call tracking and routing system, which allows attorneys to take calls from anywhere. We have a flexible scheduling model, which allows attorneys to go on and off shift with ease. And we have a multi-level staffing mechanism, which allows attorneys to prevent burnout. This is the journey of the user. Someone's arrested, and they make a call from the precinct. They'll be connected to an attorney who will invoke their rights and tell the police not to question them until they have a lawyer present. They would then get started on the case right away, ultimately leading on this person hopefully being released on their own recognizance and the charges being dropped because there was more time. In New York, in 2020, our technology was battle tested. We were able to provide emergency legal support to over 4,000 individuals. People that had never been in jail before were protected by legal support. When lawyers talk about our software, they use words like revolutionary and profound. Now, I know you're wondering, how do you get this in your city? There are 3 phases. The first phase is that we have our setup time, where our tech team builds our platform specifically for your jurisdiction. Next, we have our implementation phase, where the tech team and community liaison team go out to your city and actually help set up dissemination hubs and train the attorneys. Lastly, the tech is ready. Our community liaison team and our tech team is there to provide support 24/7, but the hotline is actually live in your city. Now, this is Jameek. Jameek was arrested for allegedly stealing a backpack in the same neighborhood of Khalif 3 years later, but Jameek's mother was able to call Good Call and be connected to legal support. The lawyer was able to witness discrepancies in the arrest process and bring that up in court, and Jameek was ultimately freed. He told me this story face to face rather than behind glass. Jameek went on to play college ball, and we are friends on Facebook. Understand, as a black man, as an entrepreneur, and as an organizer, I'm excited about this opportunity to decarcerate, empower, and build for a better tomorrow. In New York, we say we got your back. Can I hear you say we got your back? If we're in your city, we're going to continue to have yours. Thank you.
this time, I would like our 3 finalists to come back on stage and I will announce the results. And another round of applause for our participants. All of them were just stellar. Thank you. No, the chairs are for someone for the next panel, but we all want you up here. Thank you, and thank you to the judges for also coming on stage. Yay! Yeah. So, along with our judges and all of our participants out there, we do have winners. So, winner of our second place award is Safer Management. And now our first place winner with a prize of a trip to the Civic I.O. Mayor's Summit at South by Southwest, Bitwise. Yeah, it's wonderful. And let's give them another round of applause. I thought they were just all so wonderful. And thank you to our judges for all of your work and for the questions, and to all of you for participating. And now we're going to transition to a very important topic. Assuring that all who are eligible to vote are able to do so is fundamental to our democracy. And assuring fair representation of our residents in Congress and state and local legislative bodies is equally important. Unfortunately, both of these rights are under attack in some of our states. It is my pleasure now to introduce Denver Mayor Michael Hancock, who will lead a discussion on these issues with Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher, a past president of our conference, Augusta, Georgia Mayor Hardy Davis, Jr., and Denver City Attorney Kristen M. Bronson, if they could please come to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Couts, and good morning, everyone. We're here to talk about thank you, Tom. We're here to talk about a very important issue. These issues I care deeply about, and I certainly hope you care about them as well. And so I'm honored to moderate this important discussion. In this session, we're going to discuss some of the challenges to voting rights and fair redistricting we're currently seeing, and what we can and must do to assure that our elections are free and fair, and we are all fairly represented in the nation's legislative bodies. American democracy is stronger when all eligible voters participate in elections. Voting rights are under historic attack in many of our states. Our very democracy is threatened. For this reason, passage of the federal voting rights legislation is critical, but it's stalled in the Senate. I know you're surprised by that. Despite a letter from 146 mayors, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, the conference sent the Senate leaders and the best efforts of countless other organizations and individuals, the Senate has failed to act. Why is this important? Listen to these numbers. The Brennan Center reports that in 2021, 19 states passed 34 laws that make it harder to vote, and that state and local election administrators face violent threats and intimidation for their public service. Between January 1 and May 4th of this year, 6 state legislatures have passed 9 election interference laws, and as of May 4th, at least 34 bills with restrictive provisions are moving through 11 state legislatures. Every 10 years following the census, states are required to redraw voting district lines. This involves 2 closely linked but distinct processes. Of course, the reapportionment, which involves the reallocation of congressional districts among the states to account for population shifts, and redistricting, which involves redrawing district boundaries to ensure districts are of equal representation within the state to comply with the principle of one person, one vote. State legislatures use census data to redraw congressional districts as well as other legislative bodies. Unfortunately, history has shown repeatedly whichever party controls the state house has used its power to redraw the lines in their favor. Lawsuits challenging redrawn congressional and legislative body maps are common. As of May 25th, 2022, a total of 71 cases have been filed challenging redrawn maps in 25 states as racially discriminatory and/or partisan gerrymanders. Litigation has resulted in orders from state courts to redraw legislative and congressional maps in Alaska, Florida, Maryland, New York, North Carolina, and Ohio in time for the 2022 election cycle. The Florida redraw has since been put on hold by an appellate court. In addition, South Carolina has agreed to amend its new state house map without a court order, but that revised map will not take place until 2024. A total of 44 cases remain pending at either the trial or appellate levels. Taking part in this discussion, we have two of the great mayors of this nation, Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher, past president of the conference, and Augusta Mayor Hardy Davis Jr. I'm also honored to bring my city attorney, the City of Denver City Attorney, Kristen Bronson, to the stage as well. She has been a tremendous partner in helping to make sure that Denver rights and their voting rights are protected. Each will describe for us what is happening in their state concerning voting rights and redistricting and what needs to be done. So we're going to start with voting rights, and we'll go to Mayor Fisher first from Louisville for his thoughts on what's happening in Kentucky and what needs to be done to make sure those eligible to vote in his state are able to do so. Mayor Fisher?
Well, thank you, Mayor. And first, I want to commend Mayor Hancock for leading this nationwide effort that is really at the core of our democracy. And we should really just kind of step back here for a moment and think how startling this conversation is that we're having. You know, why don't people want other people to vote? Is that a question that we should be asking in the United States of America? I mean, should we be to this point right now where there's legitimate and obvious efforts to not count votes, to make voting more difficult for Americans in a democracy that we cherish, and the folks that are making this more difficult or not counting votes wrap themselves in the flag. You know, some of these things have become so blatant that we've got to be tactical, and we got to talk about how we're going to overcome it, but we've got to uphold the outrageousness of these issues like the attack on the vote, or the love-making to the gun, or the taking choice from women, things that we thought would never be taking place in our country. So we're at an existential moment of battle here, and we've got to really look at it that way and attack. I'm happy to report, on the other hand, in Kentucky, of all places, because Kentucky has gotten increasingly supermajorities in the House, in the Senate, of Republicans, and it's happened pretty quickly in the last 10 years or so. This is my 12th year as mayor. When I was elected, there was a Democratic House, majority Republican Senate, and a Democratic governor. Now it's supermajorities in the House, in the Senate, and a Democratic governor. We had some of the most restrictive voting laws in the country, and then the pandemic came along. It's almost as if a miracle occurred. We had a Democratic governor elected, a guy named Andy Beshear, and a moderate Republican Secretary of State named Mike Adams, who was focused just on making sure that people had the access to vote in as many ways as possible. So he was kind of an outlier for his party to a certain degree. But what that led to was, during the pandemic voting period, was massive, massive expansion of early voting and multiple ways to make voting take place. And it was just embraced by the public, whether it was the cities or the rural areas of Kentucky, because people that want to vote want to have as many options as possible. So it was really encouraging. And then 2022 came along, And so we went back to the precinct type voting, and many of the easier ways to vote were rolled back, not all. So we went from being like really bad to really good, and now we're not so bad. So it was progress for us because of where we started. So I'm thankful for that. But where it should be is where we were in the early 2020, when it was just, if you want to vote, here's infinite ways for you to do that.
Absolutely. Mayor Davis, you are in a state, in a state that is in the eye of this voter rights tsunami, if you will. First of all, what should be the foundational value in Georgia or anywhere with regards to voter rights?
Well, I share Mayor Fisher's sentiments as well. Georgia has become and remains ground zero for voting and voting rights issues and challenges across this nation. We were front and center in those conversations. Everyone remembers, and just like Mayor Fisher in Louisville, in 2020, a Republican Secretary of State thought it was right and proper to provide all Georgians with ease of access and every opportunity to go and cast their ballot and have their voices heard. That included sending out over 6 million absentee ballot requests to all Georgians who were registered voters. You fast forward to what took place in 2021 at the height of January with the runoff elections, and now Georgia has 2 U.S. senators who are Democratic. What that then translated into was Georgia's legislature passing Senate Bill 202, which had a series of things, and there's been much conversation across this nation about it. The most important piece is the hypercriminalization of voting. And that is a really big issue for us in our state, notwithstanding the second piece to that was the takeover, consolidation of power of the state elections board, where much of those duties and powers that the Secretary of State had was stripped away from that individual, that person who would hold that office. They expanded it then to county elections boards, of where they could unilaterally come in and take over those boards. And then the taking away of drop boxes and provisional ballots being cast on election day. 70% of the provisional ballots in the 2020 elections that were cast in the state of Georgia were Democratic. And so what you saw was an encroachment on what was freedom and access to vote, and people went out for that very purpose in a global pandemic. I want to have my voice heard, my votes counted. And so what we're seeing in Georgia, that then translated into the whole redistricting process as well. I know you're going to ask us about that.
Right.
But those things were front and center, and it is an inherent right. We talk about education being one of the bellwethers to success. Having your ability to vote and your voice heard is what representative democracy is all about. And anytime there's an infringement of that, there's an encroachment and the pulling back of that opportunity, we should all be threatened and concerned, especially when we see all of what's taking place from a polarization of what representative democracy is supposed to be all about.
Absolutely. I appreciate your point. We'll come back to the redistricting piece because I think it's critical. Kristen, you heard me talk about the amazing number of laws that are being proposed and passed in states all over the country. As you go to talk about your thoughts around voter rights, are you surprised, and do you expect a lot more litigation to occur around the nation?
Yeah, we've had a lot of litigation, and it's in many, many states.
Right.
I do expect it to continue. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of attacks on some of the broadening of voter options. Some of the pro-voter policies are getting attacked. And it has been with mixed results. It kind of depends on what circuit court you're in, what district you're in, whether or not the courts are going to be friendly to that kind of attack. In Colorado, I think it's really a good news story. As you know, Mayor, we're lauded as one of the most accessible, one of the safest election systems in the country. And I think unlike our speakers, ours really predated the pandemic. It goes back about 10 years where we started a pretty aggressive modernization and access project in Colorado. And we put a lot of investments into it, starting with voter registration. We have same-day voter registration, even on election day. And that's pretty unusual. We've got pretty much all mail-in elections across Colorado. Now, you certainly can go in person if you choose to, but most people far prefer to fill out their mail-in ballot. I think in 2020, primary voters in Colorado, I think 99.3% of them voted by mail.
Yeah.
They dropped off their ballot or they mailed in their ballot. It's safe, it's very accessible. You don't have to ask for an absentee ballot in Colorado. You automatically get one. It shows up in your mail about 15 to 20 days before the election. So it's very accessible. When you do go in to vote, you do have to show an ID. When you vote by mail the first time, you have to show an ID. But we have 16 forms of ID that'll work. And some are non-photo IDs, a social security card, a utility bill, a paycheck. We really want to give voters options, and we want to make it as easy as possible. Just some of the recent developments that you're seeing just this past year or two.
Yeah.
With the November 22 election in Colorado, we've been pushing really hard to increase access for people that don't speak English or don't speak English well. And so for the first time, all of the county electors will be required to provide a translation statewide we'll have a translation hotline, but they'll be required to provide translated ballot information and a sample ballot translated into a different language. And the languages are anything in that jurisdiction where more than 2,000 people over the age of 18 speak that language. That's a lot of languages, and we're going to be implementing that in November. We've also had a real problem in Colorado with some of our elected officials and non-elected election workers being threatened.
Yep.
Physically, the families being threatened. And that's pretty scary. It is certainly an effort to chill some of these voter reforms that we've been making. And so we just recently in this legislature signed into law this month. We now have a Class 1 criminal misdemeanor for what's called doxing. I'd never heard of it, but it means releasing publicly or on social media or otherwise someone's personal information as a way of intimidating or harassing them or their families. We've also passed some good election security measures in Colorado in this past month that'll provide for video surveillance 24/7 of our election equipment.
Yep.
It'll also require safety, secure key cards to get into any room that contains voter equipment. We know it's really important that voters and the public feel that their vote is safe. And so we've been making improvements there as well.
That same legislature passed a law, a bill, that provided security for the Secretary of State, believe it or not. I mean, she had her life threatened a couple times, quite frankly, and serious threats to her
Yes,
life.
scary.
Just trying to administer elections. Mayor Fisher and Mayor Davis, I got to ask this question. I've been curious to ask. You know, being mayors from states in the South, and knowing the history of this nation and a lot of the blood that was shed and lives lost for the right to vote for African Americans in particular, but for all Americans, right? I'm wondering, one, what your thoughts are as you watch kind of the rollback and the suppression of the voting rights in this nation, and two, I'm wondering, the second part of this question is, as mayors sitting there, and I know both of you very well, I know your hearts, I know the values that we talk about them all the time when we're together. You would fight through, you know, a gasoline wall with a wick on your head if you had to make sure that people, that didn't come out right. But you know what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
You would fight to protect the rights of your constituents to vote. And I'm wondering if you ever thought about what the role of mayors, you know, elections are administered on a local level, and what power and role we play to protect those rights. So if you can talk about your perception being from the South, and knowing the history of this nation, what you're feeling and thinking in terms of what's happening, and then two, what you think the role of mayors can be to protect the right to vote.
Yeah, as a former legislator, I spent 8 years in the legislature, 3 in the House, 5 in the Senate, as someone who previously helped write these laws. And now mayor for 8 years, I know the importance of one's ability to cast a ballot without intimidation, without harassment, without fear, and to know that that ballot was cast securely. I've worked hand in hand with my local boards of elections director, the previous one, and now our new director upon retirement of a phenomenal boards of elections director, Lynn Bailey. And having worked on Georgia's elections laws in a legislative and also serving the former Secretary of State in a advisory capacity across the state, this is central to who we are. When we think about it from an African American's perspective, I talk to my parents often about this, of what it means to them when they get a chance to vote. I've seen the Otis Moss story of his father, of what he went through to try to cast that first ballot. Those things matter to me. I've not only seen that, but I know Otis as a friend, the third.
Yeah.
And so I know how valuable it is. I know what it was to have my son go and vote for the first time. That matters to me.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to continue to be a staunch champion and advocate for free and fair access to the ballot. But more importantly, from a local perspective and a mayor's role, to make sure that all of the citizens of Augusta, Georgia, Richmond County not only have access, but they have a variety of ways in which they can cast their ballot because it is central to representative democracy.
Appreciate that.
You know, I think government's in the business of enabling the full human potential of every citizen come alive. And central to that is that people trust government. And how many times have we all said, your vote matters? You know, because some people that are cynical, especially young people, especially some of your young black community said, there's nothing I can do. This is rigged. My vote doesn't matter. And we're all idealists, and we said, no, it absolutely does matter. I mean, what happens if everybody stays home? So we're trumpeting these messages when we're asking for people to support change. And change comes at the ballot box. And then oftentimes these are populations where institutions have not treated them fairly. And they're used to seeing their demographic being taken advantage of by the man. And so now, here we go again. I thought my vote did matter. But now I see it's harder to vote. People don't want to count my vote. So I'm being hoodwinked once again. And if we can't have trust at the core of our democracy, we're in trouble. And this is what we see taking place right now multiple times. And somewhat related to this, Mike, is I know as mayors, we don't swear in new citizens, but many of us go to these ceremonies.
Right.
And there's some of the most proud moments that I've had. I'm married to a woman from Greece, and her mom and dad fled the Greek Civil War and came at a time of great idealism. And in Greece, you know, you have to vote by law. And they all go back home and they go to their villages and vote. It's just ingrained in who you are as the center of democracy there. But when you see this young woman from Sudan who is now an American citizen after fighting her way through camps and refugee camps, and she's in America, and you know, you say, your vote
That's right.
matters as much as that person that lives up in the big house on the hill. It's an amazing concept. It's a liberating concept. You know, that's our country. And to see that under attack now, whether you're that new citizen refugee or 300 years African-American family in our country, every alarm bell in the country should be going off.
I appreciate that. Mayor Davis?
Yeah, Mayor, I'll throw this out as well. My North Star as I think about this, and I've consistently been this way, is I am here because of you.
Yeah.
And had you not cast a ballot for me, I could not represent you.
That's so powerful. You know, we not only have to protect the right to vote, but we got to make sure that we don't dismiss it or take it for granted as well. And I think that's the point both of you are making.
And I also, Mike, too, we just finished our primaries in our county clerk vote. They were battling it out over voter education, which was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, your right to vote, how you vote. I'm going to be better than that person over there and making sure we get more people out to vote.
Yeah.
So that was really energizing and refreshing.
And we got to keep that kind of energy going. I'll tell you, in 2016, and I think this is, many of us experienced this, millennials and next gen, they looked at that election and were like, well, I don't really like any of the choices. I remember clearly the conversation I had with my millennial children, and they weren't going to vote. They were like, I don't like the choices. But we disconnect. You may be mandated to vote in some nations.
Right.
We should be obligated to vote in America because of the price people have paid for us to have this right. And that's kind of the discussion I had with my kids. Figure out a choice. because you were obligated to people who died for you to have this right. And we've got to keep that going with them. We have just few more minutes, 8 minutes. Let's talk about redistricting, and I want to go to Kristen because I think this is an important part of the process that we often overlook. But it can also be gerrymandered to where your rights are limited, or at least your power is limited, because they play games with the redistricting. Why is it important for citizens to tune in to that process after the census?
Well, unfortunately, it's because of the history. We've seen a lot of abuses of that process where the vote gets watered down and people just feel, what's the point in voting? I'm in a jurisdiction where my vote doesn't matter because it's already rigged for one party or the other.
Yeah.
In Colorado, our maps have ended up in the courts too. But interestingly enough, we had just recently a couple of constitutional amendments on the ballot. They were passed by over 70% of the voters in Colorado. They're known as Amendment Y and Z. And they set up a grand experiment in our state in 2021 where we had an independent redistricting commission that was set up to draw the maps. And we had, I don't know, something like over 1,500 applicants for the Legislative Commission and over 2,000 applicants to sit on the Congressional Commission. Some people obviously applied to both. There were restrictions on who could apply. You couldn't be a recently elected official or someone who'd run for office. Couldn't be a lobbyist. There were some, really prevented to try to keep insiders from being on the commissions. And the idea really was, and the ideal, was to keep these decisions out of the back rooms. If you were going to propose a map or an amendment to a map, you had to do it in a public meeting. And they held dozens of public meetings on the various maps that staff had prepared. And it was a long process through engagement, really deep engagement. And obviously nobody gets what they want, 100% of what they want. No one's going to be entirely happy. But we came out with maps that were unanimously approved by our Colorado Supreme Court. And were really an improvement, I think, over at least where we had been in the past. So it's a good model. I'm hoping we see other states do the same. And as you say, it's not without its critics, of course. But there were a lot of very strict procedures on contact with commissioners, disclosures that had to be made around lobbying. And I think it was a big improvement.
Whenever I've learned in this job, when you engage the citizenry as best you can in terms of helping to make a critical decision, it kind of mutes the criticism, or at least it limits it a bit. How was the experience in Louisville, Kentucky, the state of Kentucky?
Supermajorities in the state House and Senate, as I mentioned before. So, and look, whoever's been in power over the years, gerrymandering districts is not a new thing. Right. So, I mean, you can't throw shade at the Republicans or Democrats just because it's been done by both parties, and it's both bad for both. So we got to get to the point where it's data-driven, commission, nonpartisan, can't be questioned in terms of if that's its ethics. Until we get there, it's a problem. And one example now, kind of good and bad. We only have 6 congressional seats. One of the seats was redrawn, so it takes 8 hours to drive from its westernmost point to its easternmost point. How does that make any sense? Doesn't make any sense except for the guy that's holding the seat right now. On the other hand, they could have taken my city of Louisville, about 800,000 people, and they could have cut that up in 3 different ways and turned it red. But Louisville's kind of the progressive blue sanctuary of that part of the country. So I give them credit for not attacking us. But at the end of the day, we've got to get to some point where people look at it and say, that makes sense, I trust that.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah. Same in Georgia. Supermajorities in both the House and the Senate, and been that way since really 2002. Republican governor. The gerrymandering process is bad for all people involved. And I remember back in 2010, former state senator, former gubernatorial candidate Jason Carter and I, we were suite mates, and we authored legislation to do that very thing, establish an independent commission. Of course, it didn't get anywhere in a Republican-controlled Senate, but I think that's the way, if you truly want representative democracy, get people involved in that process, provide them with the data, the tool set, so that you're truly reflective of the state in which you live in. And that's how we've been, that arc towards justice and opportunity.
Yeah, that's beautiful. As we close, I want to make sure we extend the invitation. Mayor Sylvester Turner, Mayor of Houston, will be convening local elected officials and stakeholders around voter rights September 19th through the 21st in Houston, Texas. It follows a summit we convened in Denver, Colorado last fall, where a draft playbook was developed to give local elected officials tools to help protect the right to vote for their citizens and to encourage them to engage. This is a nonpartisan conversation. We don't see voting as a partisan issue. This is a nonpartisan conversation, and we're excited that Mayors Holt from Oklahoma City and Mayor Giles from Mesa, I almost said Scottsdale, Mesa, Arizona, have signed on, both Republican mayors, and believe, Mayor Holt is up front, I didn't see you here, thank you. Both Republican mayors have signed on, and this is, again, how we as local elected officials and local stakeholders, organizations, county officials, can work together to protect and to make sure that people have full access to the right to vote.
Absolutely.
We want to see you in Houston, Texas. We hope you come through and be a part of that. Will you join me in thanking Denver City Attorney Kristen Bronson, Augusta Mayor Hardy Davis, and Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher for this panel. Have a good day.
You know, you guys have been awesome to stay engaged. So let's make sure that our panelists know how much we appreciate them and the discussion that we just had. Because it's very, very important for all of us. And so as a reminder, all mayors who will be taking part in our business session should be seated at the front of the room. So mayors, if you're sitting in the back, I know Tom Cochran, our CEO, always says that we're a church, but for this church, you need to come forward and not sit in the back. Yeah. Yeah.
He has a 10-card reader.
So mayors, because we will be considering resolutions this morning, I urge you to review the section in your program that explains the credential process, page 2 and 3, or look into the notices section of our app. Please make sure that you have your credential card, here it is, in hand to be counted during any vote. So let's see. We're now ready to begin our business session. You were supposed to go to the registration desk and get your credentials. So we'll wait a minute while people are getting their credentials. We won't start without you because this is very important. Okay, our staff, our wonderful staff has made it very easy for mayors. If you have not picked up your credentials, they're right here to my left. Please pick up your credentials. Shall we begin?
Give a second.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking because they're still.
We're okay in time there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
No, we don't need a timer. It's going to be what it's going to be. And I'm standing next to the president, so we're fine. We can clear the clock. We can clear the clock.
Quite a few of them did not have their credentials.
I think it's confusing. Take the clock out. Mirkowitz doesn't need it. It's going to be what it's going to be. It's just confusing.
Don't you go downstairs. You stay right here next to me.
I'm sorry?
I said, don't you go downstairs.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to go behind it. I'll go back there.
Well, why can't you stand right here?
I don't. I'm not supposed to be in the shot. You're the.
Well, you don't have to be in the shot, but you need to stay.
I appreciate it.
You know, don't.
Very kind.
Yeah, don't.
Yes, I do not want to embarrass myself.
Yeah, good. I'm glad the lights are up so everybody could see. But look at that line.
This is good, actually. We had a little extra time. It's fine.
Yeah.
Things work out.
Yeah, we're good.
We should be done in about 3 more minutes. We should be good within about 3 minutes. Does she need that much light on her? Jeez. Okay. No, I'm not arguing. No, this is working fine, actually. It's good they're getting their cards. They're taking it seriously. This is excellent. Everything's fine. Yeah. The tech pitch went well. It was great. We can't control that. You controlled what you could control. I thought it was awesome. Take the win. So David, if there's 2,000 people in the stands and the Nationals win, they still win, right? Okay, we've only got a couple more. I see 2 more people
getting their cards, and then I see one more mayor going up. Hold on. We're almost done.
Mayor Rodman. Linden Hall. Mayor Kapsakevich. Kapsakevich, right?
Kapsukavich.
Kapsakevich.
You got it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, why don't you ask everyone to take...
Now, if everyone could now take your seat, we will now begin the business session. And I'll ask that mayors please keep your remarks concise in the interest of saving time. If there is no debate, well, let's do this. In the interest of saving time, if there is no objection, debate will be limited to 2 speeches of 2 minutes per mayor per question. And this morning we have Mr. Wynn as our parliamentarian, so he'll keep us all honest and on track. So, as there is no objection, the rule is adopted for this meeting. The first item of business is to consider the resolution before us, which, if passed, will become the official policy of the Conference of Mayors. The resolutions have come from the standing committees. The full membership may also consider any new resolution proposed by a member mayor at this session. Consideration of new resolutions require a 2/3 vote of the members present and voting. And new resolutions will be considered after voting on all resolutions approved in the standing committee. At this time, as chair of our process, I would like to know if any member mayor is offering a new resolution. Thank you. Seeing none. The U.S. Conference of Mayors Executive Committee allows mayors to record a no vote on a specific resolution that is adopted in either committee meetings or the business session during the annual meeting. In both cases, the mayor must be present for the vote. For a committee-passed resolution, the mayor also must be a member of that committee. This rule will not change the voting results of a resolution. To register a no vote on a resolution that passes during the business session, go to the resolution section in the 90th annual meeting section of the app and tap the resolution on which you wish to vote. A vote button will be visible at the lower portion of the screen. Mayors, their staff, or city representative will have until 5 p.m. Pacific time today, Monday, June 6th, to register a no vote. We will now consider the resolutions from the standing committees. The resolution will be considered committee by committee in the order listed on the app. The procedure will be as follows. First, the chair of each committee or designee will make a brief presentation of that committee's resolution and then move for their adoption. Next, I will call for a second. Then I will ask if any member mayor wants to have an individual resolution pulled for a special consideration. Once the resolution to be pulled have been identified and set aside, we will vote on the remaining resolutions for that committee en bloc. We will go through this procedure for all standing committees. Then we will have a discussion on all the resolutions pulled for special consideration, followed by a separate vote on each one. After that, we will take up any new resolution, but we had no new resolution presented. If the parliamentarian issues should arise during our debate, we have a professional parliamentarian present who will be able to assist us in resolving them. And as I introduced earlier, he is Mr. Tim Wynn. We will now consider community development and housing. Mayor of Toledo, Wade Kapsakavich. Hey, Kapsakavich, I think I got it right.
Perfectly done. Thank you, Madam President. The Community Development and Housing Committee met on June 4th to consider 19 resolutions submitted in a timely manner. They were resolutions 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33. The committee passed all resolutions, and I move their adoption.
Is there a second? There's a second. Does any mayor want a resolution to be pulled for a special consideration? Seeing none, I now call for a vote on the resolutions en bloc, excluding any resolutions that have been pulled for a separate consideration, and there were none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the ayes have it, and the resolutions are passed. Thank you, Mayor Kapsakavich. The next standing committee is Children, Health, and Human Services. Mayor LeVar Stoney of Richmond, Virginia, chair of the Children's Health and Human Service Committee. Mayor Stoney.
Madam President, the Children, Health, and Human Services Committee met on Saturday, June 4th, 2022. We considered 14 resolutions that were submitted in a timely manner and one new resolution. Therefore, Madam President, I move for adoption of the following resolutions 1 through 14 and a new resolution number 103.
I now call for a second on the resolutions as moved. There's a second. Let's see, does any mayor want a resolution to be pulled? Seeing none, I now call for a vote on the resolutions en bloc. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. And the motion passes. Thank you, Mayor Stoney. I now call on Fresno Mayor Jerry Dyer of the Criminal and Social Justice Committee. Mayor Dyer.
Thank you, Mayor Couds. The Criminal and Social Justice Committee met on June 3rd, 2022, and considered 20 resolutions initially, which were all submitted in a timely fashion. In addition, the committee considered 2 new resolutions. The committee reported out all 22 of these resolutions for consideration at this business session. And so I move for adoption of resolution numbers 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 6, 43, 44, 12, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, and Resolutions 104 and 105.
Is there a second? There's a second. Does any mayor want a resolution to be pulled for special consideration? Seeing none, I will now call the vote of the resolutions in block. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say nay. And the resolution's passed. Thank you, Mayor Dyer. I now call on Grand Rapids Mayor Rosalind Bliss of the Energy Committee. Mayor Bliss? Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Mayor. The Energy Standing Committee met last Friday, June 3rd, and I am delighted to report that we have adopted all 8 resolutions. And so I would like to move forward with the adoption of resolutions 29, 52, 53, 54, 56, 57, 58, and 59.
Is there a second? And there is a second. Does any mayor want a resolution to be pulled for special consideration? Seeing none, we will now vote on the resolutions in block. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion passes. Resolutions are adopted. Thank you, Mayor Bliss.
Thank you.
I now call on Richmond, California Mayor Tom Butt, speaking on behalf of the Environmental Committee. Mayor Butt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Environment Committee met on Saturday, June 4th. We considered 7 resolutions that were submitted in a timely manner, as well as 2 additional resolutions that were introduced on Saturday. The committee reported out all 9 resolutions. I move to adopt the following resolutions: 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 106, and 107.
Is there a second? There's a second. Does any mayor want a resolution to be pulled for a special consideration? Seeing now, none, I now call for a vote on the resolutions in block. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion passes. The resolutions are adopted. Thank you, Mayor Butt. I now call on Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt, acting chair of the International Affairs Committee. Mayor Holt. We need a microphone for Mayor Holt. Yes. Right here.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. The International Affairs Committee met on Saturday, June 4th. We considered 6 resolutions that were submitted in a timely manner. The committee reported out those 6 resolutions. I therefore move to adopt the following resolutions: 48, 63, 65, 66, 67, and 68. Thank you.
And I'll call for a second on the resolutions as moved. There's a motion and a second. Does any mayor want a resolution to be pulled for a separate consideration? Seeing none, I will now call for a vote on the resolutions in block. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion passes and the resolutions are adopted. Thank you, Mayor Holt. Next is Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego, Chair of the Jobs, Education, and the Workforce Committee. Mayor Gallego.
Thank you, Madam President. The Jobs, Education, and Workforce Standing Committee met on June 3rd to consider 11 resolutions submitted in a timely manner. The committee adopted 1 new resolution. I move the adoption of resolutions 69, 70, 71, 72, 31, 73, 74, 75, 18, 76, 33, and 108.
There's a motion. May I have a second? There's a second. Does any mayor want a resolution to be pulled for special consideration? Seeing none, I now call for a vote on the resolutions in block. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion carries. The resolutions are adopted. Thank you, Mayor Gallego. I now call on Hartford Mayor Luke Bronin, Chair of the Metro Economies Committee.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam President. The Metro Economies Standing Committee met on Saturday, June 4th, and I'm pleased to report that we adopted all 15 resolutions submitted in a timely manner. We had a great meeting, and I'm here this morning to move the adoption of resolutions 77, 78, 79, 75, 80, 81, 31, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, and 89. This concludes my report, and again, thank you for the opportunity.
There's a motion. May I have a second? Second. There's a second. Does any mayor want a resolution to be pulled for special consideration? Seeing none, I now call for a vote on the resolutions in block. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion carries. The resolutions are adopted. Thank you, Mayor Bronin. Next, Boca Raton Mayor Scott Singer will present the report from the Tourist, Arts, Parks, Entertainment, and Sports Committee. Mayor Singer.
Thank you, Madam President. The Tourism, Arts, Parks, Entertainment, and Sports Committee met on Saturday, June 4th, and adopted all 6 resolutions that had been timely submitted. I move the adoption of resolutions 74 and 90 through 94. Thank you.
May I have a second? There's a second. Does any mayor want a resolution to be pulled for a special consideration? Seeing none, I will now call for a vote on the resolutions in block. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion passes. The resolutions are adopted. Thank you, Mayor Singer. And now, Transportation and Communication. The final report will be given by Denver Mayor Michael Hancock, Chair of the Transportation and Communications Committee. Mayor Hancock.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for this opportunity to provide the report of the Transportation and Communications Committee. The committee met on Saturday, June 4th, to consider 9 pending resolutions submitted in a timely manner, all of which were approved without objection. In addition, we adopted a new resolution as well. I'll now move for the adoption of the following 10 committee-passed resolutions, numbered 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 56, and 109.
There is a motion. May I have a second? Second. There's a second. Does any mayor want a resolution to be pulled for a separate consideration? Seeing now, none, I now call for a vote for the resolutions in block. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion passes. The resolutions are adopted. Thank you, Mayor Hancock. We have before us the following resolutions which member mayors have requested to be set aside, but there are none. So we will begin considering them in the number that they were brought up, and we do not have any of those. The vote is now on the adoption. So members, mayors, we don't have any other business to be discussed. And we are now ready for the nominating committee. I'm looking for that, and it's not coming up on the prompter. And we have, for the nominating committee's report, Mayor David Holt, Chairman of the nominating committee, is going to give the nominating committee's report. Mayor Holt.
Thank you, Madam President. The 2022 nominating committee met on Saturday, June 4th. I certainly think that the strongest consensus from the committee was that we had an excellent group of mayors who wished to serve in leadership or to move up in leadership, and we were thrilled with that and very optimistic about the future of the organization as a result. And we all, I think, collectively thank President Suarez for our appointments to this committee and enjoyed the process. We recommend, as the nominating committee, that the conference name Mayor Hillary Sheevy of Reno as Vice President and Mayor Andy Ginther of Columbus as Second Vice President. Further, yeah, sure, go for it. Further, we recommend Mayor Todd Gloria, Mayor Tashara Jones, Mayor Adrian Perkins, and Mayor Aquanetta Warren as trustees. And finally, we recommend Mayor Chris Barnett, Mayor Justin Bibb, Mayor Paige Cognetti, Mayor Kate Gallego, Mayor Timothy Keller, Mayor Ron Nirenberg, Mayor Aftab Purifal, Mayor Stephen L. Reed as advisory board members. I move adoption of the nominating committee's slate.
There's a motion and a second. Thank you, Mayor Holt, and to the members of the nominating committee for your hard work. I know there was a lot of debate going on, but we got the work done. So, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say nay. And we have new officers in the Board of Trustees and the Advisory Board. Thank you, mayors, and thank you. This ends our business session. We will see you this afternoon for the luncheon featuring White House Infrastructure Coordinator Mitch Landrieu. He's going to be with us for our final plenary session. We now stand adjourned.